Welcome to another video in my garden. And today's video is going to be a little bit different because what I wanted to do today was share with you some of my top plants for the August garden. And I know that it's a really beautiful time in the summer where a lot of things are blooming, things are looking lush, but there are certain plants in the garden that really shine in the month of August. And I thought I would walk around my garden and give you some examples of the plants that I love in my own garden and share them with you today and talk about them a little bit, what I love about them, why I like them, and all of that. So the very first plant, for those of you, before I get started, I garden in Zone 6 in Toronto, Canada, and I love sharing with you my garden and my journey in the garden and just all things that are happening in my garden. So the first plant that I want to share with you, and some of these plants may not be hardy in your zone, so always check which plants are good for your zone, but most of these plants should be hardy from zones 5 at least till 8 because they work for me here. So this first plant is an allium. This is an ornamental onion, so this is not the bulb allium, but it is a perennial allium. So this one is called Serendipity. It's a gorgeous onion. There are many varieties. There is, as you can see, it's loaded with pollinators. That's first reason why I would plant it. The other reason is that it blooms at this time of the year. I think sometime in end of July, August is when it starts to bloom in my garden, and it blooms for a fair bit of time, like about few weeks. It is a very reliable bloomer, and the good part is as the clumps grow, you can divide them and you can spread them out in your garden. So lovely, beautiful colors. I mean, I think you can buy pinks, you can buy shades of purple in it. So there are lighter purple, darker purple. So there are many varieties. There's also Helenium. There is other varieties that are larger. So you can take your pick based on your situation and site of the garden where you want to plant them. But they do look amazing in the garden. In the summer garden, they are a very, I would say, classic, basic plant, but they are very beautiful. They add a lot of interest in the garden, and as you can see, it is covered in pollinators. They love this plant, and I would highly recommend this perennial for your garden as my #1 perennial for the August garden. And I don't just want to talk about perennials. Maybe I will also talk about some shrubs that can come into bloom at this time, but I really want to talk about the perennials because they are easiest to add to any garden. You can tuck them in here and there. You can create drifts, or you can just plant one of them if you don't have a lot of space. So they are beautiful. So let's see what else I can find to show you in the garden. The plant I would recommend, or I love in my garden for summer, is the beautiful summer phlox. Now phlox comes in many varieties and many different heights and many different colors. So this particular one is a gorgeous phlox that I have in my garden. It's variegated. It's got these really delicate blooms, white with pink centers, and I just love how it adds so much height and beauty. And it's a simple cottage garden plant which looks great in most garden settings, and it's a great perennial to have in the garden. And it blooms in August, at least in my garden, and it blooms for right into fall, and it looks great. So you could deadhead it and it would put out more bloom. So this one here, I think this one is called Becky. This has just started to bloom, and I do also have another one that is also blooming in the garden here. So phlox is another wonderful perennial for the summer garden, and I would definitely recommend this one. There are many varieties. This one particularly, I've never had issues with powdery mildew, and you can see how tightly packed my garden is. So a lot of the old varieties are susceptible to powdery mildew. Generally, it's good to plant them where they have a lot of airflow and circulation, so that'll reduce the risk of getting the powdery mildew. But absolutely amazing plant for the summer garden, and easy to find in garden centers. Most garden centers and nurseries will carry a phlox, so you can take your pick and get your favorite one planted in the garden. It also grows as a clump, so you can divide them as the clumps get bigger. I personally haven't divided this one yet, but it is getting to a point where it has really stretched. So I think in the next year or two, I will consider dividing this one. Next plant that I would recommend for your summer garden, and really for all of summer, once it starts blooming, it never stops, is the Agave. Many different varieties. This is the blue boa, this big Agastaches blue boa, and the other one is, I think, little adder or something like that. It is an absolute heaven for pollinators. They just love this plant. You can find it in many different varieties in the garden centers. There's also many different colors. You can get corals, you can get pinks, you can get, I'll show you a couple of different ones that I have that are corals and pinks, and they are just as beautiful. And just add a different element in the garden. I just love how they have a different structure compared to the other flowers, and they really add a lot of whimsy in the garden. And they smell nice. Rabbits, deer typically don't bother them because of the mint family, and they are just an easy perennial to have in your garden for full sun garden. So just a note, the alliums, the phlox, and this Agave are perennials for the sun. So I am walking you through my full sun garden in the front yard. This is a east facing garden, and it gets a lot of sun for most part of the day. It gets southeast facing sun, so it's pretty hot and baking throughout the day. So beautiful plant, highly recommend. So I have many different varieties, and most of them have done well in my garden. There are some that haven't survived and come back, but for most part, these are an awesome perennial for the garden. Now, the only thing that's really important when you're planting an Agave is you need to have well-drained soil. They will not tolerate wet feet and soggy soil that doesn't drain well, but this one, amazing. Once you have the right soil, I barely ever have to water these. They live off of the rain, and they're happy. So beautiful plant, love it in my garden, and I highly recommend this perennial. Let me show you a couple other colors that I have as well. This here is a nice coral pink color. Agave, isn't that beautiful? I love how in the same plant family it can have such a variety of colors. And I also have a beautiful pink one right here, and it's also beautiful. This is a proven winners variety. I think it's meant to be raspberry or jazzberry, something like that, and it's gorgeous. I love this one as well. It's gorgeous. And it's right beside my favorite fourth perennial that I wanted to mention was Echinacea. So Echinacea, I mean, it's certainly a quintessential perennial for me in the garden because they are easy. They come in so many colors. Pollinators just absolutely love Echinacea. Like I cannot tell you how many I already have in the garden, and no matter how many times I go back into a nursery or garden center, I am always drawn to Echinacea. They are just absolutely fabulous. I don't know, it's so sunny out here, but I want to show you how beautiful they look, because this is the time for pollinators to be in the garden, and they are just loving their life with all of this Echinacea. So you can see it comes in a variety of colors. It is absolutely beautiful, and beautiful perennial, quite easy. I mean, if you want to deadhead them, you can. I generally don't. I leave them, they dry on the plants, and the birds, the goldfinches, just love the seeds, and they do self-seed around the garden, but they're easy to kind of pull out and share with friends, and just a very beautiful perennial for the garden. So I would highly recommend the coneflower as a staple for your August garden. They do start blooming for me sometime in late June, and they go all the way through into fall. So excellent perennial for the garden. Highly recommend coneflowers for your garden in August. I don't think I could make a summer recommendation video without pointing out this Geranium Roseanne. It's amazing. It's awesome for your garden. I just love how it just sprawls in the garden wherever you put it, and it just adds this pop of annual-like color in the garden, which is unheard of, because once it starts blooming, it doesn't stop. I think it's still blooming in my garden till October, November sometimes. So great value for money. Amazing perennial to add to your garden. I mean, these flowers are just beautiful. I mean, the pollinators are just loving this perennial, and I've had this one for quite a long time in my garden, and I haven't really divided it yet, but it's glorious. It's huge and it's glorious, and I just love it. I do have them in other spots in the garden too, but they, as you can see, they are just, you know, trying to crawl onto everything and anything in the garden, and they almost look like a shrub because they're just latching onto the different plants and just, you know, loving it here. So love this perennial. Beautiful pop of purple color, low growing, but if you're growing it amongst other shrubs and plants, it will mingle, and it will try to crawl in between and look like it's larger, or it's rising, you know, much taller than what it is. But if it is just planted on its own, it'll stay to the ground, and it'll just, you know, spread out and do its thing. So beautiful perennial, love it. I would highly recommend this one for your summer garden. You know, when you make a video on summer perennials, I cannot help myself but include beautiful Coreopsis. Now, Coreopsis is one of those hardworking plants in the garden. They do bloom all summer, late spring, summer, autumn in the garden, and they are just an absolute delight in the garden. I think the only thing that I personally sometimes do not like about Coreopsis is the amount of deadheading it needs, because it goes through the bloom so quickly. It produces, as you can see, there are so many buds that are spent on this Coreopsis that I have to deadhead it so that it can continue to bloom. And you know, even if I don't deadhead it, it is producing the blooms that I want it to. I haven't deadheaded this in a while now, so it still has blooms on it, but if I was to shear this back a little bit, it would be covered in blooms in no time. So it depends the kind of look you want for this plant. So it's great if you can deadhead it. It's great if you can keep it deadheaded. So what I usually like to do is, instead of doing 3 or 4 blooms at a time, I wait for a wave of spent blooms, and then I'll just go and I'll just take a pair of scissors and I'll just snip all across, and then within a couple of days there are more blooms and more buds. So it's a beautiful perennial, adds such a pop of color. There are many different varieties of Coreopsis. This one here is Zagreb. It has a really nice ferny texture and very delicate bright yellow flowers. There are two-tone flowers, there are orange Coreopsis, there are all kinds of them. So seek them in your garden centers. You won't be disappointed. They are a wonderful summer flower to add to your garden. I mean, I think they add so much value to the garden because they are blooming all the time in the garden. So beautiful perennial. Highly recommend Coreopsis as a summer blooming perennial that I would highly recommend from my garden. Perennial on my list is the Blackeyed Susan. So this is Goldstrum rudbeckia. Amazing summer blooming perennial. Look at the color, look at the pop of color it offers in the garden. Just an absolute stunning plant. It will bloom right through fall, and it has an immense amount of blooms. Just a very beautiful, cheerful flower in the garden. I absolutely love Black-eyed Susan or Brown-eyed Susan. There are just so many different varieties of these, and you can easily find these anywhere in the garden centers. Just a fabulous perennial to add to your garden, and it just offers great pop of color, very reliable, comes back year after year. Don't have to do much, low maintenance, easy. I don't even deadhead them. they will kind of bloom and then dry on the plants, and I just leave them over the winter months. So beautiful, stunning perennial to add to your garden. Perennial that I wanted to mention is beautiful Helenium. So this is also called sneezeweed or Helenium. So this is a new to me perennial. I planted this last year in my garden. Wasn't sure what I was gonna expect out of it, but it's really met and exceeded my expectations, because I just love how beautiful this and long blooming this plant is. Once it starts to bloom, it's got a really beautiful flower. It's not I think this is called autumnal sneezeweed. So it has a blend of colors in the yellow and rust and reds and maroons, and it's really beautiful. I just love how beautiful and vibrant this is, and it's different from Blackeyed Susans and Echinacea. Love the open flowers like the Echinacea and Blackeyed Susan, but just the overall flower shape and it looks delicate, but it's not delicate. And I think that's what I love about this flower the most, that it's got this beautiful texture, and the leaves have a different shape, and the leaves are much delicate, almost like an aster. Just beautiful flower for your garden. So this is another perennial. If you can find it in your garden centers, it's not generally widely available. You'll have to look for it, but when you do see it, do grab one and give it a try in your garden. I think that's what I did last year. I just grabbed one of these, and I'm amazed at how beautiful this plant is looking, and it's really filled in quite a bit, and it's adding such a great pop of color in the garden, and it's really standing out with this patch of cone flowers. As you can see, it's just looking really beautiful, and the shade of yellow and red and oranges blending together is just a really pretty flower in the garden. So this is another one that I would recommend for your summer August garden. If you want flowers that are going to, it's just, this flower just feels like summer to me, and going right into the autumn months, it's going to fit right in with, if you have asters and New England asters, it's just going to look fabulous with those purple tones as well. I would love to mention is a perennial hibiscus. So these are the dinner plate hibiscus. So this particular variety is called Very Awesome by Proven Winners. I love dinner plate hibiscus, and you can go out and find different varieties of these. I have several in my garden, but this is the one that's blooming the earliest in the garden. Love how beautiful and tropical these look in the garden at this time of the year. So these are my very reliable August bloomers. They just make me happy in the August. Just when my lilies are starting to fade, these are the ones that are coming into bloom, and I just absolutely love perennial hibiscus. They are very hardy. They are hardy up to zone 4, I think, and they just are a beautiful flower, and there's so many buds on the Proven Winner plants. I mean, it's a great all of the Summerific series is really prolific in terms of blooms, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if you pick any. They come in a range of colors. There is whites, there's pinks, there's purples, there is reds, in different kinds of reds. So this is something I cannot live without in August. It's a great perennial for the garden. It just adds, like from a distance, it's a very beautiful eye-catching flower, and I'm quite a bit further away, and it's really one of those perennials that really pops in the garden. I absolutely love this perennial in the garden. The plant I want to share with you is the beautiful blanket flower. So this is a really pretty flower that blooms and blooms and blooms. As you can see, these are the spent blooms. They look like pom-poms, and even if you didn't deadhead this, they are going to keep pushing out a lot of blooms. I don't even mind the look of the spent blooms on these. They come in so many different colors. There are reds, there are apricots, there are yellows. As you can see, the one behind here is more yellow, and it's just gorgeous. I love blanket flowers. They are absolutely stunning, beautiful, beautiful flowers in the garden. They keep blooming. Once they start blooming, they are going to continue to bloom. Don't require too much maintenance as well. They are just easy perennials for the garden. Love the heat, love the sun, love the dry soils. Need excellent drainage though, so keep that in mind. I think most of these plants will prefer well-drained soils over heavy clay-based soils, but you can amend it. You can try them out in your garden. I mean, I don't have an issue with drainage in my soil, but for my garden, these do really well in my garden. I just absolutely love the blanket flowers. Last but not the least, I would love to mention this beautiful perennial Russian sage. This variety here is called Denim and Lace. As you can see, it is a shorter variety of Russian sage. It comes in many different varieties. Some are taller, some need staking when they're taller, but this Denim and Lace variety is a shorter Russian sage, and it starts to bloom in August for me, and it'll keep on blooming till fall. And beautiful purple blooms, nice scent, nice silvery green foliage, and it's a beautiful plant to attract pollinators. It loves the heat, it loves the dry soil. It needs excellent drainage. Just an overall hardworking plant in the garden. Again, adding that vertical structure to the garden goes really well with coneflowers, your Coreopsis. Like as you can see, I have it paired here with beautiful Geranium roseanne. I have Zagreb Coreopsis, and I have this Denim Lace Russian sage. It's not a very old plant in my garden, so they still have some filling out to do, but I am very happy with this plant, and I just love the texture and the spiky nature of this beautiful plant. So this is beautiful perennial as well for your summer garden. Highly recommend it. I love the interest it adds to the summer garden as well, and I absolutely love it in my own garden. So that's it from me today. I am sure I missed some plants. I think I also wanted to show you Scabiosa, which I absolutely love as well. And I can walk over and show you that quickly. I thought that would be my last plant, but here is a Scabiosa flower. I have many different varieties. This is the Farmer Blue Scabiosa. I have the Butterfly Blue. I have different varieties, and I absolutely love this perennial as well. It will keep on blooming for most of the summer and late spring into fall. As long as you keep deadheading it, it's working hard for you in the garden. So, and much hardier than it looks. It's a very tough plant. So highly recommend this one, and I'll end this video on this note. I hope you enjoyed my recommendations. What are your favorite summer perennials? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and see what your favorite perennials are. So till my next video, I hope everyone has a beautiful gardening day wherever you're joining me from, and from my beautiful garden to your beautiful garden, I send you lots of garden joy. Thank you so much.